Hi, I'm Zona, the director of the Butler Institute of Art, and we're so proud to have as part of the Butler collection the David Bermant collection of art based in technology, kinetic art that deals with motion in one form or another. We're thrilled to death with the collection. It's going to add so much to what the Butler has been all about, showing the greatest of American works of art. We're in the gallery dedicated to David Bermant, the David Bermant Gallery, where so many of the gifts that were given to the Butler by the foundation reside. What is particularly wonderful about this space is to hear children screaming and yelling and moms and dads laughing. And I think that's what art is all about. It's supposed to stop us and either amuse us or cause us to think about things. I'm standing in front of a work by Earl Ryback, who loves to deal with the concept of infinity, and so you see what lights and mirrors are capable of doing. This is a fascinating work that even the title, dealing with warp, is amusing and telling as well. Above us is a work by Jenny Holzer. Now, Jenny Holzer is one of the biggest names in the art world, and she has been for the last number of years. This is a work from the 1980s that shows a kind of an LED stream statements. Now, she's a conceptual artist who is known for her conveyance of ideas through this LED process. The works are visually interesting, but the concept behind it is always inspiring. Jenny Holzer is an artist of great talent. When we think about art based in technology, the father of technologically based art is the great Marcel Duchamp. Duchamp may have been the most important artist of the 20th century. His importance can be seen in the fact that so many artists today continue to be inspired by the great Marcel Duchamp. David Bermant and I had a wonderful conversation about Duchamp and about this particular piece, which also deals with the concept, I think, of infinity. He was the first artist to employ motors. He was the first artist to employ technology, and that's why he is so important. You know, interestingly, one of the great art magazines used to have a poll of museum directors and curators and artists. Who is the most important artist of the 20th century? Who is the least important artist of the 20th century? In each poll, Marcel Duchamp led the way. But those people who weren't early convinced of the importance of Duchamp certainly are now. His influence is profound. This is one of the sound sculptures by Harry Bertoia. They're fascinating pieces. Harry Bertoia is one of the most important artists of the 20th century, one of the most important sculptors of the 20th century. You'll see his work in the major collections around the country for sure. Well, we're delighted that the Bermant Foundation gave us this wonderful sound piece by Harry Bertoia. Beside me is a work by Mack Hines, which shows an interesting motion. You know, the works in the Bermant collection are all about motion, light and motion, either actual motion or in theory motion. Optical illusions, for example, are a major part of the collection. And this piece by Mack Hines is hypnotic in nature. It just kind of draws you in, which is what I think all important art does. It draws us in and causes us to stop and think, to wonder about what the artist was trying to state. We're still in the process of installing the Bermant collection here at the Butler Institute. Several of the pieces, like the ones in this space, have been set and are ready to go. But it's interesting that the word of mouth it's out there and people are excited about it, and already people are wondering when the entire installation will take place. We're well on our way. It should be shortly. This particular group of works is particularly interesting. And I have to stop here at Jean Tingley's work. His work is always humorous. I remember a major piece of his at the Museum of Modern Art that was filled with motors that caused various motions like this piece. And then the ultimate thing is that it just would fall apart, blow apart. Well, fortunately, Tingley made a work here that is not going to fall apart and is indeed quite humorous. We're loving it. David Bermant was a visionary. How else would you describe a man who saw great and significant art dwelling within the world of technology? Before anyone considered technologically based artistic expressions as serious art, there was David Bermant. Not only did he come to recognize that art created with light and digital electronics was indeed on the same level as painting or sculpture, he also took the unprecedented step of acquiring such work, while encouraging artists to stay with their vision and to continue to explore new realms. I was introduced to David Bermant by a renowned art dealer, the late Ivan Karp, who described David Bermant as one of the truly great collectors of our time. Ivan knew of my affection for art based on technology and of my interest in one of his artists, Clyde Lins, who pioneered the use of fiber optics in sculpture. I eventually met David Bermant at Ivan's O.K. Harris Gallery in SoHo, and we immediately were heading toward Lin's studio on Long Island. Walking into that space-age artist studio with David was an amazing experience. David's excitement in sharing this experience was only topped by his enormous admiration for what Clyde Lin has achieved. He could not have been more enthusiastic for the work, even if Clyde had been his own son. That visit with David Bermant and the subsequent drive to his home to see part of his collection there was an experience that I'll never forget. Although most of the artists were not known to me at that time, David introduced me to each piece, demonstrated its unique quality, and discussed each artist as if he were describing a Rembrandt or a Degas. As I listened to each descriptive word, it became clear to me that David Bermant truly understood the aesthetics of each work and believed totally in the creators of each work. As I think back on that day, I believe that I grew both as a museum director and as an art professional. It was my first step in coming to appreciate that serious and important art was being created out of the mainstream and by artists who took risks in new and exciting technologically based media. At that time, they performed before an audience of one, David Bermant. One of my proudest moments as director of the Butler Institute of American Art was hosting one of the first comprehensive exhibitions of the Bermant collection. It was an eye-opener for most museum visitors who had never experienced art that looked and acted that way. The experience also was the impetus toward the creation of an art and technology wing, the Beecher Center at the Butler Institute, which was funded by the state of Ohio and local foundations such as the Beecher Foundation. But a key part of this unique venture was the creation of a gallery equipped to handle every and any type of technologically based artwork, the David Bermant Gallery. Nothing could have been more appropriate than to name a gallery of visionary art after the greatest visionary of that artistic genre, David Bermant. Much has been said about these qualities that make up the ideal collector. The term passion is invariably used to describe the collector's primary personality trait. With David Bermant, technologically based art certainly was a passionate pursuit, but it was more than the satisfaction of a need to possess things. With David, it was a cause to be shared. When I asked him to display his extensive and varied collection with us, I saw a side of him that endeared him to many. He saw in my invitation the opportunity to expose a new kind of art yet to another audience. On the night of the opening reception, he became an evangelist, preaching and educating everyone in the galleries as to the wonders of what these artists had achieved. I can still see him demonstrating the interactive work of Nam June Paik, an artist that David admired and championed early on. His devotion to the cause of new and exciting media won many over that night, making our future efforts to present a permanent home for technologically based art at the Butler Institute much easier to accomplish. It is certainly no wonder that the artists collected by David would have such great affection for the man. Over the years, the Butler has shown numerous Bermant artists in the museum's Bermant Gallery, and with exhibitions comes a tribute to the singular vision of this extraordinary man. It is clear that the artists who experienced David's encouragement and support remain committed to the ideals of David Bermant. Even though David has been gone for some time, his adventurous spirit seems to be alive in the artists who first inspired him and in return inspired others. I am convinced that David would be thrilled to know that another generation of artists has taken up the banner and are running with new ways to marry art and science. He would be overjoyed at what has transpired as a result of the availability of digital technology to the artistic mind. He would be ecstatic to know that LEDs have advanced so dramatically and that the computer and large-scale digital printers are offering images with such clarity as to be unimaginable just 10 years ago. That ever-advancing technologies would one day become a tool of the artist would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. But David Bermant saw this coming, and he envisioned a world that dazzles us visually while challenging us intellectually. The future of the artist, as David Bermant predicted, would be intrinsically tied to the scientist. David applauded this marriage and devoted a great deal of his life to permitting it to flourish. His vision and his good work will live on through the creative energy within the artists he championed and through the spark of innovation found within a new generation of artists who are and will be inspired by David's energy. Thank you, David Bermant, not only for what you once accomplished, but also for the impact you continue to have. You introduced us to a universe of new ideas, and in the process, enriched our lives.